Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. On today's show, we're talking about a disease that's rampant throughout the world of real estate investing. This disease is everywhere, and it's the source of millions of dollars in lost revenue and increased expenses. There's no vaccine against it. There's no outright cure. But with good process, it's possible to be immune from this disease. The disease I'm referring to is called Versionitis. Versionitis happens when you reference the wrong version of a document, an outdated version of a regulation, or the wrong version of a drawing. It's the source of misunderstandings. It causes wasted materials, cost overruns, and contractual disputes between contractors, architects, subcontractors, and owners. It happened to me very recently. A planner for the city sent me a document. She told me it was the latest and greatest. It was not yet published by the city on their website, but we should use the one she sent us as a guide for our development plans. So I did as she suggested, and I saved the file, referred to it frequently, and built our plan based on her guidance. Imagine our surprise when the newly updated, published document on the website didn't match the version the planner sent us. All of this happened in the span of 2 weeks. You might be a subject matter expert in a particular area. You know the regulations, but the regulations change without warning. I had a real estate agent give me an environmental report for a site that had contamination. She told me the concentration levels of gasoline in the ground were well below the required level of 150 parts per million. But then the regulation changed to 50 parts per million. She had no idea. She was operating on stale data. We had a subcontractor bid a job based on an old drawing. The GC made a mistake and didn't include the latest drawing list in the contract, even though the old drawings referenced in the contract were nearly 6 months old. The result was several missteps, lots of miscommunication, and the wrong components were ordered. And the building inspector for the city pointed out the deficiency, and the new parts needed to be ordered for the HVAC system. The cost of this single error was more than $60,000. Every time a copy of a file is made, there's a chance for Versionitis. We were performing due diligence with a fund manager earlier this year. We shared a Dropbox folder with the entire data room. The underwriter for the fund made a copy of the files, created a replica of the data room on their own computer. Now we continued to update the data room with documents, and the fund manager continued to use their local copy, completely unaware of the updates. Naturally, it didn't take long before we were speaking a different language. At a certain point, we had to simply ask what version of our document were they using, and the root cause of the problem became clear. So, how do you prevent Versionitis? It requires a discipline, requires a way of thinking, it requires a way of operating. It means that every time you reference a document from a government regulation, you go to the website and download a fresh copy of the document. Each time you share a file, you send a link to the file and not the file itself. You see, the second you make a duplicate copy of a file, one of those versions is potentially out of date. Even within our own team, we have to exercise great care, put version numbers and date codes in the name of every single file. There can only be one golden copy of a document. There can't be 2 or 3, only one. That means our own document management system needs to be even stronger than the one we're using. We're diligent, we're careful, but I see myself making mistakes that most of the time have no negative consequence. But Versionitis is silent. It makes no noise. The symptoms don't show up until long after the mistake's been made. See, back when I was in the tech industry, we had a proper library management system. Versionitis was a much greater risk in that world. We had hundreds of thousands of files, versions of software modules, versions of hardware designs, and the corresponding supporting documentation. If even a single file was out of date, then our brand new microprocessor design that we were sending to be manufactured wouldn't work. Your printer wouldn't print, your phone calls wouldn't complete, and your network computer storage system would fail. The stakes were too high. We couldn't risk it. See, the world of real estate investing and development is much simpler than designing a microprocessor, but the cost of a documentation error can be just as high. Those same business systems that we used back in my high-tech days are just as important now in a low-tech industry. The cost of implementing a bulletproof documentation management system is not that high. It's a few $1,000s a year, but saving a single costly mistake makes the investment look like a bargain. We're in the process of evaluating several software systems, and in the coming months, we will have selected and implemented a system, and we'll share more about what we chose and why. As you think about that, Ask yourself if you've got Versionitis. Have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.